It's a little after 11 on a Friday night, and you are exactly where you wanted to be. Home, in soft clothes, a show queued up, the day finally surrendered. Then your phone lights up. A friend has posted a photo from a rooftop somewhere across the city. String lights, a blur of laughing faces, a caption that says, "Couldn't have planned this if we tried." Suddenly, the couch feels less like a refuge and more like a mistake. You weren't unhappy 30 seconds ago. Now a small, insistent voice asks, "Should I have gone?" That voice has a name. Psychologists call it the fear of missing out, or FOMO. And while the acronym feels like internet slang, the thing it describes is old and deeply human. What's new is the sheer volume and precision with which modern life delivers evidence of the lives we are not living. We have always wondered about the road not taken. We have never before carried a glowing rectangle that broadcasts in real time the rooftops we skipped, the dinners we declined, the trips our acquaintances are having right now, filtered and captioned for maximum appeal. My argument is this: FOMO is not simply a feeling of envy or regret. It is a distortion in how we make social decisions, one that quietly hijacks our attention, corrupts our sense of what we actually want, and manufactures a low, chronic anxiety that persists precisely because it can never be satisfied. Understanding how it works is the first step to loosening its grip. To see why FOMO is so powerful, it helps to understand what it exploits. Human beings are, at our core, creatures built for belonging. For most of our evolutionary history, exclusion from the group was not a social inconvenience, it was a mortal threat. To be left out of the hunt, the shelter, the alliance was to be left vulnerable. So we developed an exquisitely sensitive internal alarm for signs that we might be excluded, a kind of social smoke detector. That detector served our ancestors beautifully. The problem is that it was calibrated for a world of perhaps 150 people, where missing out meant something concrete and survival relevant. It was never designed for a world where you can witness thousands of gatherings you weren't invited to every single day before you've even had breakfast. This is the first way FOMO warps social decision making. It inflates the stakes. A modest choice, stay in or go out, gets processed by a nervous system that treats social absence as danger. The result is that we say yes to things we don't want, out of a vague dread of what might happen if we say no. Consider how often people attend an event not because they're excited by it, but because the thought of seeing photos afterward and feeling excluded is unbearable. The decision isn't really about the event at all. It's a defensive maneuver against a hypothetical future ache. We are not choosing towards something we love. We are fleeing from an imagined loss. And here we arrive at the strange arithmetic at FOMO's heart. Every choice, by definition, forecloses others. To spend Saturday hiking is to not spend it reading, cooking, resting, or seeing that other friend. This is simply the nature of finite time. A healthy mind accepts this quietly. FOMO refuses to. It keeps the ledger open on all the roads not taken, so that even a genuinely good evening carries a faint shadow of the better evening you might be missing elsewhere. The tragedy is that this can make no choice satisfying because attention is always leaking toward the alternatives. You are at dinner, but half of you is checking whether the other party was more fun. You have, in effect, decided to be nowhere. The technology we now live inside doesn't just reveal this dynamic, it engineers it. This is not a conspiracy theory, it's the stated business model. Platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat earn revenue in proportion to the time and attention they capture, which means their designers have every incentive to make putting the phone down feel costly. Features are built precisely on the fear of missing something, the disappearing story that vanishes in 24 hours, the streak you'll lose if you skip a day, the notification that someone is live right now. Even the phrase we use for checking a feed, scrolling to see what I missed, reveals how the medium has trained us. Former insiders have been remarkably candid about this. In 2017, Sean Parker, Facebook's founding president, admitted the platform was built around a social validation feedback loop that deliberately exploited a vulnerability in human psychology. and said the creators knew this and did it anyway. FOMO, in other words, is not a bug in these systems. It is closer to a feature. A skeptic might reasonably push back here. Isn't some fear of missing out just useful? After all, the discomfort of exclusion is what nudges us off the couch, keeps friendships alive, pushes us to seize opportunities we'd otherwise let drift past. A person with no fear of missing out might slide into isolation, never RSVPing to anything, letting the world happen without them. This objection deserves an honest answer, and the answer is yes. A mild, occasional version of this feeling is not the enemy. The tug that gets you to your friend's birthday when you're tired and leaves you glad you went is doing exactly what our social instincts evolved to do. That's not FOMO's failure mode. That's a healthy signal working properly. The distinction lies in direction. Healthy social motivation pulls you towards something specific and valued. This person, this experience, this connection you'll be grateful for. FOMO pushes you away from an undefined, ever shifting sense of lack. The first is a want, the second is a dread. One leaves you fuller after acting on it. The other leaves you checking your phone in the taxi home, already anxious about the next thing. You can usually tell which one is driving by asking a simple question. After I do this, will I feel more connected or just temporarily less afraid? A genuine desire survives that question. FOMO rarely does. Which brings us to anxiety and to the cruelest feature of the whole mechanism. It is structurally impossible to satisfy. Think about what it would take to actually stop missing out. You would have to attend every gathering, take every trip, seize every opportunity, be present in every conversation happening across your entire social world all at once. This is not merely difficult, it is logically impossible because being anywhere means not being everywhere else. So the fear can never be resolved through action. Every yes you offer to quiet it simply generates a fresh field of new things you're now missing while you're busy attending the last one. The dog can never catch its tail. This is why FOMO produces not a sharp passing fear, but a chronic background hum of anxiety, the specific unease of a problem with no available solution. The research bears out how corrosive this hum can be. A foundational 2013 study by Andrew Przybylski and colleagues, which gave us the first validated scientific measure of the phenomenon, found that higher levels of FOMO were linked to lower overall mood, lower life satisfaction, and, tellingly, heavier and more compulsive social media use. That last finding points to a vicious loop that anyone who has lived it will recognize. You feel the anxiety of missing out. You reach for your phone to check what's happening, seeking relief. But the feed is an endless parade of other people's curated highlights. So instead of relief, you find fresh evidence of everything you're not part of, which deepens the very anxiety you were trying to soothe. The cure and the poison are the same substance. It's a little like scratching an itch that spreads the more you scratch. It's worth naming what makes the modern version especially insidious: the asymmetry of what we see. We compare our own unedited, moment to moment reality, the boredom, the small frustrations, the ordinary Tuesday, against everyone else's highlight reel, the 2% of their lives deemed worthy of posting. Almost nobody uploads the argument they had before the party, the awkward lulls, the fact that the rooftop was freezing and half the group left early. We are, in effect, measuring our behind the scenes footage against the world's trailers, and then wondering why we come up short. The comparison is rigged from the start, and some part of us knows it, and it stings anyway. There is a further, subtler cost that FOMO exacts, one that reaches past anxiety and into the shape of a life. When we consistently make choices out of fear rather than desire, we gradually lose touch with what we actually want. Preference is a muscle, it needs use to stay strong. If you keep saying yes to what you're afraid to miss instead of what you long to do, you slowly forget how to tell the difference. You become fluent in the language of should and lose your ear for the language of want. This is perhaps FOMO's deepest harm, not the individual anxious evening, but the slow erosion of a self that knows its own mind. A person governed by the fear of missing out is, in a quiet way, being lived by their notifications rather than living by their values. So, what loosens the grip? Not, I think, some heroic digital detox that treats the phone as the sole villain. That framing lets us off too easily, because the real work is internal. The more durable shift is one of orientation. It begins with the recognition that missing out is not a malfunction to be eliminated, but the fundamental price of choosing anything at all. To commit to a life, a relationship, a craft, a quiet Friday is to close thousands of other doors willingly and to feel the draft from them without letting it pull you back into the hallway. The philosopher's old idea of the joy of missing out captures part of this, but I'd put it more plainly: peace comes not from missing less, but from minding it less, from trusting that the evening you chose is enough because you chose it, and that the rooftop across the city will get along fine without you. That trust is quietly radical in an economy built to undermine it. Every notification is a small argument that your present is insufficient, that the real party is elsewhere, that you'd better check. To sit with your own Friday night and find it complete, to let the phone glow and dim on the table without reaching for it, is a genuine act of resistance. Not against technology exactly, but against the story that your life is a series of rooms you're standing outside of. Return then to that couch, that show, that photo lighting up the dark. Nothing about the scene has changed. You are still home, still in soft clothes, still where you chose to be. What can change is the meaning you give it. You can read the photo as an indictment, proof of the better night you're missing, or you can see it for what it is: a small, bright fragment of one person's evening, no truer or fuller than your own, and no argument against the quiet you actually wanted. The rooftop is real, so is the couch. The fear of missing out is the lie that only one of them counts. The door you didn't walk through was never the only door. It was simply one of the countless you'll always leave closed. And learning to feel that draft without flinching may be one of the more grown up freedoms available to us now.